Okay, so we're going to start this one here, which is fine. You're using the sine rule to find the missing angle. This was the last one we did, which was the sine rule to find the missing side. So the sine rule to find the missing side. And now we're moving on to the sine rule to find the missing angle. The reason why I left this one here is because it's practically the exact same thing, except for you just need to get the inverse function. So if you have a sine function, you'd have to get the inverse of sine. If you have, well, actually, it will always be sine, right? So just to see what we're at, we're leaving cert trigonometry. Angles in a triangle adding to 180. In this case, that won't help us because I don't know two angles, so that doesn't have any impact here. If I knew this angle, obviously I'd be able to work out what A is. But in this case, I don't know this angle, so I can't work out what it is. So we'll go back there and we look at 90-degree triangles. So we don't have a 90-degree triangle, so we can't use Pythagoras' theorem, and we can't use trig ratios. Okay. The next thing is the area of the triangle being half AB sine C. That doesn't help us in this case, okay, because we don't know the area. And if we knew the area, it might help us, but we don't know the area. And that brings us on to the sine rule. And to use the sine rule, you need to have two sides and two angles. And in this case, we have two sides and we have two angles. I'm saying we have two angles because we're looking for one, but we have the other one. So if you have two sides and you have two angles, meaning that you're looking for one of them, then you can use the sine ratio. So we'll start off there at the sine ratio. And like we had in the last question, the sine ratio is A over sine A. So A over sine A is equal to B over sine B. Okay. So just zoom in on that a small bit, right? So in this case, what you need to do is you need to pair up your angles and your sides. So the angles and the sides, you always keep the opposite angle with the opposite side. So in this case, 11 and A are going to go together. And similarly, 18 and 66 are going to go together. Okay. So what you need to do is you need to look at what you have. And we're going to do the first fraction first. And like I said in the last couple of questions, I always put the unknowns in the first fraction. And A here is the unknown, so I always use the first fraction for the unknowns. So in this case, A represents the side. So the side I'm going to put in there is going to be 11. So I'm going to put in 11. All over sine of A. And in this case, sine of A is going to be sine of A. So it's not changing, it's still sine of A. That's going to be equal to B all over sine of B. So we go to B, which is the side B. Lowercase always means the side. So the side here is 18, so I'm going to put in the 18. And that's going to be divided by the sine of B. And the sine of B is going to be the sine of the angle that's joined to the pink one. So that's going to be 66. Okay. What I'm going to have to do next is I'm going to have to sort it out, and I'm going to have to try and get my, well, I have a fraction equals a fraction, so I can cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply these two together, and I'm going to multiply these two together. Now, like I said the last time, I like to keep all my unknowns on the left-hand side, and that's just what I do because it makes things easier when you get to the end. So I'm going to put the unknowns on the left-hand side, so I'm going to work out these ones first and say that 18 multiplied by sine A will be on the left-hand side. So 18 multiplied by sine of A will be equal to the red ones, which is 11 sine of 66. Okay. Now, getting down as far as here, I would think everyone should be fairly okay with getting down as far as here. And this is where people tend to make mistakes. Okay. But let's just zoom in on that and have a look. So we're looking for a value for A. So if you look at that, you're looking for a value of A. So let's just focus on that. Okay. What's happening here is I'm getting 18 sine A. And I know that that means that 18 multiplied by sine A is equal to this. I don't want 18 sine A's. Okay. So I'm going to try and find the value for A. So the easy thing to do is to get rid of that 18. And how I get rid of that 18 is I divide both sides by 18. So if I divide both sides by 18, I'll have sine A equals 11 sine 66 all over 18. So you can see here what I did. I divided the left-hand side by 18, and it left me with sine A. Because I divided the left-hand side by 18, I have to divide the right-hand side by 18, and that's what I did there. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to highlight this, and we should know this from what we did earlier. You can see that when we were doing trig ratios. So when we were doing trig ratios, you can see that there. Trig ratios. We would have seen something like this when we were doing trig ratios. So this shouldn't be new, right? So in order to find out what this is equal to, I don't want sine A, I just want A. Okay, so I just want A. So I need to be able to get A. I need to be able to isolate the A. And it's very easy to do that. So if I want A, what I need to do is I need to get rid of the sine on this side, I need to get sine inverse of this. So if I get sine inverse of sine A, I'll be left with just A. So it's like saying the opposite of multiply is divide, which is what we did in the last step. When we're working with trig ratios, the opposite to sine is sine inverse. So if I got the sine inverse of this side, I'd be left with just A. But I have to make sure I do the same to the other side. And the other side, I'm going to get the sine inverse of what's there. So I'm going to get the sine inverse of this here. Okay. And I'm just going to show you that there in the calculator so you can see. So if we just get that set up, and how we type this into the calculator is very important. And it's just because it's the inverse function. So if we put the screen up there so you can see, and I'll just bring this over to the side because you don't need the full thing, just so you can see the question. Okay, so you should be able to see the question there, and you should be able to see the calculator obviously. So what we're going to do is turn on your calculator. So we're just going to turn it on. When you look at your calculator, you should see there that there should be a small d on the calculator. So there should be a small d there, which means that you're working in degrees. If there's not a small d there, then you just need to do the following. You need to press shift, you need to press mode, and you need to press 3 for degrees. So you can see degrees there, and that will get your calculator back into the right mode. Okay. So what I'm going to show you is how we input this here into the calculator, and how we do that is we need to put the sine inverse of this fraction. So we know where the sine button is because we've used that a fair bit. The sine inverse button we would have used when we were doing trig ratios, but some of us might just need a refresher on that. The sine inverse button is just above the sine button. So you can see it there in yellow, sine inverse, which is the second function of the sine button. So to get that, what you need to do is you need to press shift, and then you need to press sine. Okay, so you can see there, I've got the sine inverse button. So far I've got the sine inverse, you can see there in green, so that's sorted. The brackets are open, so that's fine. So now I need to put in this fraction. So to put in that fraction there, I need to press the fraction button. And then I need to put in 11 sine, so sine, and then I'm going to put 66. Now you can see your calculator there, your calculator automatically opens the brackets there, so you need to make sure you close them. So we're just going to close those brackets there. So I have my numerator filled in, so now I need to fill in the denominator. So to fill in the denominator, we just press down, we press 18, and then we go back out of that and we close our brackets. Okay, so that's that filled in. So if we press equals, it'll tell us what it equals, and the answer there is 33.93. Okay, so 33.93. So I'm just going to get rid of that and I'll fill that in there. So I fill that in there. So 33.936. So again, let's just have a look at that. So A will be equal to 33.93677 821. Okay. Now, with questions that ask for a missing angle, 90% of the time they ask you to give your answer correct to the nearest degree. It's just what they tend to do. In this question, this came from a textbook, and the textbook actually did ask for the nearest degree. So we're just going to look at how we get that to the nearest degree. And how we get that to the nearest degree is we go back to the decimal point, we draw an imaginary line, and we look at the number that follows, which in this case is 9. If that number is greater than 5, then this rounds up. So in this case, this rounds up to 34. The answer there is 34. Okay.